Hello, everyone. This is Jessie Bowen, and I'm here with Coach Nathan Ray. Hey, sir, how you
Greetings.
doing?
Happy, radiant, free, shining bright like three diamonds. Happy to be here with you, sir. How about yourself?
Better and better, trying to make the world a better place.
I know you've been after it. We haven't. It's been unusual. We didn't talk the last couple of days, so
I
I'm
know.
excited to jump online with you now.
Well, listen, as hard as I've been working, getting ready for Vegas, I've got my book coming out, then I've got four other people books coming out. I have the event in Vegas and all the wrap up stuff. So, hey, listen, I have been using that term, living the power to live your vision. I'm working on 100 authors that want to publish their books. I want to share that
That's great.
story of how they can become empowered. And the only way for me to do it is for me to just do it. And we got a
Yeah.
great show today that we really want to enhance. Again, everyone, this show is presented by Elite Publication. Visit our website, www.elitepublications.org. If you're thinking about writing a book, publishing a book, then let us know. We are your easy button to become international best-selling authors. We help you write. We help you to publish. We help you to market and monetize your book. So remember, everyone's got a story. You just have to get it out. And so, today we're going to be talking about, what I consider is a good topic. And that topic is, sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to reinvent yourself is our title today. So no matter where you are in life or what you're doing, reinvent yourself. And what you have to do is to stop, analyze where you are, and then find out what it is that you have to do. Sometimes what you have to do is the last season in your life, you didn't get done. So we go through these seasons of life and the things that are changing in our lives. And sometimes we have that thing we wanted to do. And then, we get older and, those things are still on our mind. So we have to reinvent ourselves because some things Jessie can do. And there's a lot of things Jessie can't do, but when I reinvent myself, I have to reinvent my mindset also.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a powerful view of life and our ability to affect our life. I think sometimes when people fall into the victim mentality, it's just like whatever's coming from the outside is the master of it all. But in truth, the power and the mastery is on the inside. So that's why I'm excited about today's subject. Um, and you touched on it a little bit, but just for the audience sake, I'll be that person who says, okay, well, what does that mean? You touched on it when you said mindset, but what is it to reinvent yourself? You gave an explanation. Now you're in a new season. Maybe you didn't accomplish something, so something has to shift, something has to change, is what I got. And I think that's what we're talking about, shifting our mindset so that we're coming from a different perspective. Is that what you would say to the layman?
Well, yeah. And it also means that there's some things that I'll use the example of public speaking. So, standing in front of a group of people can be a very terrifying thing. Doing a podcast, people are becoming, more at ease at doing these things, but public speaking. And I know for myself, standing in front of a group of people, I'm the guy that stands to the back of the room. I know, Nate, you stand at the front of the room, but I'm more comfortable in the back of the room. Ask me a question, you get an answer. But so reinventing myself. So for an example, if you want to be a great speaker, then what is your model? Because reinventing yourself, you may be thinking one thing, but really it takes something else. There's no new information. someone has already done it. So reinventing yourself. So just for public speaking, for an example, I listen to Les Brown, Jack Canfield, Tony Robinson. So Jesse has to take that part of their personality and add it into my personality so that if I want to be on that level, so your level may be too low to get what it is you really desire. So you have to change your mind. You have to change your habits. So reinventing yourself goes into a lot of different things. So when I'm actually speaking in front of a group, I've been blessed to be a corporate trainer for Nike, for American Express, for Coca-Cola. And I've had this opportunity to step in these different positions and to be able to share, my lessons, my teaching. But Jesse finds that very difficult. So I send Les Brown, So I
Right.
sort of I look at Les Brown as one of the great speakers of all time. He's got humor. He has things there that I could do. So I reinvent myself so Jesse doesn't go to speak. Les Brown goes to speak. So I've learned a lot about Les Brown. So I integrate, his format of speaking into my training program. So if you want to be better or live better, you may want to find that person that already has achieved what you're looking for. And what is it about that personality? Maybe, you were talking earlier about Michael Jackson and the self-talk, I am great, I am great. So you may have to reinvent yourself. Someone's have told you you're worthless, you're no good, you won't succeed. So you have to reinvent that belief, especially if you believe it's more. Every day you got to tell yourself that I'm great. I am more than this. I am powerful. I can get these things done. So you have to reinvent that negative thought that you may have and change that to something that's positive that you can move forward on. That's the reason why studying great people will make you great also.
Yeah, that's real powerful. You said a lot. That's great. Um, because in what you shared, one of the big things that I pull out of it is we have the power to do that. And, talking to yourself is free. Seeing yourself in a higher light, in a better light, is free. You don't even have to buy the book. You can go to the library and check out the book and read from the author. So all of these excuses that people say, well, I don't have the wherewithal, they're actually, most of it, especially our using our imagination, that's a God-given thing that we're given. Is free and it's powerful. So, and those people that you spoke about are people who believed. They started to believe in themselves and a greater version of themselves. And even for them, to and I was sharing with you, Hanshi mentioned, I watched the Michael Jackson film, and the thing that I love most about it, because we lived through that era where the albums came out and the excitement behind them and everything. So watching a film about it, it's okay. However, so I was reluctant, but when I watched it, it just reminded me of how greatness operates. And Michael Jackson was, he was not just learning the knowledge, like we talk the knowledge here, but and we say it all the time, but what are we doing with it? Are we actually implementing it in our life? So it was exciting to watch the film because it showed Michael talking to himself right before he was recording a song. Hey, you're the greatest artist that ever lived, you're the best. And when you think about people who have talked themselves into greatness. Anthony Robbins, you mentioned Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins. I remember when he came out, and I remember when he went up, he was Wonder Boy and flying helicopters and doing all these amazing things, and then he went down. But then he came back up again because he knew the power of doing these things. So when you see him warm up before he talks to a crowd and he's jumping around, looking silly, looking crazy, he's doing all of these things to do pattern interrupts and so forth. But the key is he's doing it. The thing in
Right.
the film was Michael talked to himself, but then he put action behind the talk. And I think that's where a lot of people get paralyzed You read these good things, you take the information, but if we don't integrate it into our lives, then it becomes very difficult to reinvent ourselves based on knowledge, because knowledge is powerful, but knowledge is just one step. We have to take action with it. And the same thing with Muhammad Ali. You know,
I am the
he
greatest.
he said, "I'm the greatest." And when you heard him, it's like, man, he's kind of arrogant. But no, he had a belief in himself, and people grew beyond thinking he was arrogant. But if he didn't believe in himself, who would believe in himself? Little guy from Kentucky, the middle of the country, or little Kentucky as it was then, and then going on for Olympic success, and then talking himself into winning a title 3 times after it got stripped from him. So there's so much in that, but just looking at those examples of people like Les Brown, like you mentioned, I love what you said, because in the film about Michael Jackson, after he did the self-talk and everything, he kept saying to his sister Latoya and others that were close, "I'm going to reinvent myself.
Hmm.
I'm going to have a different style. I got this style put on me when I was a child by my dad's vision. However, now I've come of age. Now it's time for me, and I'm going to reinvent myself." He used that specific language of today's show. So I'm grateful for today's show, because, like you said, we can all do that. We all have the opportunity to do it. The question is whether we're going to take it or leave it.
Right, right. Well, we have to pay attention when you feel that you have stopped growing.
Mm,
That is the key point. And
mm,
you're growing, and all of a sudden you hit a bump in the road, and you feel like you're just stuck. You want to learn or to be able to move forward from that. A new chapter doesn't mean your past was a failure. It means that you're ready for new growth. You ask yourself, what is life calling me to become next? Not like that when I was reading that, what is life calling me to become next? And that's a pretty powerful story. That's one of those things you write down. What is life calling me to become next? Is it an author? Is it a speaker? What is life calling you to become next? You can stay as you are, and you never achieve that next level. And Nathan, I went to New York. Man, this was probably back in the mid '90s, to a Louise Hay
mm.
event,
Oh,
and
really?
she was very powerful. She had these Tony Robbins and other speakers on, and I bought a poster, and it was a kitty cat, but it was a very colorful graphic design, and it said, "I am great. There's no one just like me. There never has been, and they never will be. I am forevermore a divine creation." And every day, I for years I looked at that. I gave it to one of my students, but it's sort of embedded engraved in my mind that how do you think about yourself? Reinventing yourself or what people think you should be, but how do you reinvent yourself, and how do you actually move forward?
Well, that's right. When you touch on having a poster, not only the way you described it, it was a colorful poster, and it had, and all of those things are playing into our subconscious, breaking old patterns and getting into new patterns, and just the verbiage there, man, that's so powerful. Well, what do you say to the person who kind of knows these things? They're watching the show, and we want to thank Elite Publications for sponsoring the show. Uh, you all can find us on Spotify and YouTube and Facebook. We're all over the place because we want to spread this word. But what do you say to the person who has kind of heard this, is aware of it, but they're somewhat paralyzed maybe in where they are? They know it works, but for whatever reason they might be a little stuck, They might need a little oil on the gears to get things moving. What do you say to that person?
I would say, go to our website, thepowertoliveyourvision.com, and schedule a coaching session, a
Okay.
free coaching session. That's the first thing, because you need a coach.
Mm,
My wife, a lot of things that, may not be able to motivate me. My best friends may not be able to motivate me. But when you have a coach that's designed to help you break through that barrier, to give you the motivation, to give you the ideas. So you've got to put yourself in an environment that you can grow from. If you know that you're stuck and you're slowed down, then you got to put yourself in a new environment. And if you
like
don't
that.
have that discipline to be able to do that, you need a coach. I remember when I came back took over my businesses as the manager. Well, I let my general manager go, and I came back and took over that position. I was like a fish out of water. Okay, what do we do here? So I didn't try to, flounder around. I went out and hired me a coach, hired me a business coach that was already successful, that could give me a plan and that could hold me accountable. So when you're trying to make changes, and it's a tough thing to do, especially if you didn't change your environment and you're still dealing with the same environment, you need to find that way to be able to escape and find, if you don't have that discipline to sit and listen to motivational tapes yourself, then hire a coach. That's the very first thing I would say. So if you'd like to set up a free coaching session, then you can go to our website, which is thepowertoliveyourvision.com, and you can set up a coaching session for Coach Ray or either for myself. We're certified coaches, certified goal success coach. I'm a certified mental performance coach, certified sports hypnosis coach. So certified. So because I've studied these things, because, in these, I knew that my life, it took more for me to understand the power of my inner self. And that's where your breakthrough has to come in. So you don't want to allow age to stop you, or you don't want your past failures to stop you. You don't want your circumstance to define your future. So I want to say that to you again. So age. I'm 72. Hey, I'm good to go. Hey, I'm back out, heading back out to the PBA tour, because it's not over yet. But your past failures. Maybe I tried something and it didn't work. Try it again. Go try
Right.
it again. Your circumstances, don't let those define you, your future. And I think we talked about this a few weeks back. And in bowling, I was the bowling coach for Duke University. I've done all these things in bowling. And I turned pro on the PBA tour back in 2002. I was not the best bowler in our bowling center. I'm carrying a 200 plus average, but I still wasn't the best bowler. The best bowlers were waiting for someone to sponsor them. They were waiting for someone to come up and give them a handout. So your circumstances, maybe I can't afford to do this at the moment. Go get a second job. Go get 2 jobs, whatever it takes for you to be the best you can be. Don't let your financial, I'm poor. Don't let that be your defining moment. Start talking about how rich you are, and then start moving forward.
Well, I mean, that's brilliant advice. Going back to what you started with about investing, and that is the word, investing in a coach who can speak to your specific needs, speak to your specific mindset, because anything that stage talk is going to be very general, and maybe it hits and maybe it lands and maybe that's enough, but in a lot of cases it might be that little specific thing you need in the context that you're in. So I think, wow, that was a brilliant piece of advice. And then on from that, doing whatever it takes, you know, being in the spirit of doing whatever it takes. I love that piece that you just ended with, because again, it's a reminder that the power to do, and I saw the same thing in golf. I met some, I was at that time, I was really after golf and after improving. And along the way, I'd be at the clubhouse and there'd be some young men or whatever age they were, but they were great golfers. And you would see them perform and go, "Oh my God, if I could hit a ball like that, I would be on tour. I would be on the mini tour. I'd be on some tour. I'd be playing professionally if I was doing that." And when went to speak to them, they would say the exact same thing you said about the bowlers, which is, "Well, I don't have a sponsor." They start with this whole list of alibis and excuses as to why they can't. They were thinking, "I want to make the leap," but they weren't willing to pay the price. And I think that goes back to the teachings that we got from our karate grandmaster, O Sensei Wellendorf, which is pay the price. Sometimes you got to step in. It's like Attack Form One, our first kata. Have the warrior spirit. The danger is there, but don't back away. Step into the middle of it. That kind of having that grit, like you said. I love it. Be willing to do whatever it takes, go get the other job, but that's the mindset. That's the warrior mindset applied to life. And the cool thing is everyone's got an inner warrior. Sometimes it's covered with so much junk. We talked about the golden chalice when we were growing up in the dojo.
Right.
It's all this gunk and junk, but if you had a cup, a golden cup, that could, if you touch it, could give you anything you want. And then our teachers would say, "Hey, but it's layered with poop and all these other dirty things and mud and all this thing, to the point
Yeah.
where you don't even see the golden cup anymore." But what if you got down into the mud and dirt and whatever it was and cleaned that thing off and you touched it, which was a metaphor for our mindset, right? It was
Right.
a
Right.
metaphor for our thinking. And so, man, you touched on a lot of powerful points. I know we're going to be wrapping up in a moment. I just wanted to share with everyone that what he just shared is gold. I mean, you could take that and run with it. I know I'm excited. Look, I got my notes. I take notes every show and to get off the call and go do something. So I just want to encourage all of you all to go back and watch this. You can go back and you can go on Spotify, create a playlist of and register for our work. There's so many formats that we have, but go back, study these things, because you're really getting a master class and some truly powerful advice. So I'm just encouraging everyone, don't just look at this as entertainment. It sounds good and you're motivated for a quick minute. Go back and watch it, take your own notes, and then try and apply. And like Hanchi said, reach out to us if you want some support.
Well, you just brought back, I'm sitting here smiling, you just brought back memories of Sensei, doing the ceremonies, and and he would come out with a golden chalice and he says, "Okay, I've drug it through the mud. Would you take it?" And everybody goes, "Yeah, I would take it." He said, "Now I'm gonna tie your hands behind your back, and I've drug it through the cow pasture, and it's all gunged up. Would you chew it off would you clean it off with your teeth? Would you,
Ooh,
but that's what we're talking about. As I
yeah.
sit back and as we think, how bad do you want it? How bad, are you willing to go out and work for it? You forget about your setbacks. What you want to do is to ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? So you don't have a setback, you have an experience. What is it trying to teach me? Now, then you want to identify what you gain through your setback, the wisdom, the relationships, the knowledge, or, the new potential. You want to reinvention doesn't require becoming someone completely different. Sometimes it means developing a stronger vision of yourself. So having a stronger vision of yourself. That poster that I used to every day repeat, I am great. There's no one just like me. There never has been. They never will. So you have to find that message that now can relate to you, that you believe in. You want to develop the confidence and the discipline to begin again. It's not, people will hear me say, it's not over yet. you know, uh,
Right. You're still
it's
alive,
not
still
over yet.
breathing.
It's,
Yeah.
someone says, well, you're 72, you need to get rid of that Corvette. You need to go ahead. It's not over yet. It's not over yet.
Right.
So, and that's what you want to think about, because that's what helps you build your journey as you move over. And you want to be able to develop that confidence that you can step into that. You have the confidence, the discipline, and you want to begin with a small commitment you can now keep every day. You want to stop waiting until something is perfect. I used to be a perfectionist. I'm a September guy, Virgo. I'm a perfectionist. Whoa, that's overrated. I started working on being proficient, because perfection will take you a lifetime. And people lose it because they're not willing to go with what they have and then begin to develop it as they're on their journey. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your confidence. And what you want to do, and this is where, having a coach is to create that 90-day clear vision, that 90-day clear vision, rather than trying to change your entire life overnight. Focus over that 90 days, and 90 days to change. You can reinvent yourself. You can, so many in that 90 days. That is the powerful thing. It's not 30 days. It's not 60 days. Give yourself that 90 days, from today, and you now start moving forward. What is your number one priority? What 3 measurable goals would you move forward in your life? What is the most important place for you to start doing things? What must you stop doing? So you have all these things, and then we come into the strengthening your mind, body, and spirit. And this comes through the power of visualization, the power of meditation, the power of prayer, the power of exercise. So it's not just one thing. There's a series of things that will move forward. Don't drift through life and looking for the end, because there's only 2 things that happen. Number 1, you're born. Number 2, you die. Everything else in the between is your journey. That is your legacy of who you are. So if you're listening to our program, there are things you want to do, and in your mind, you think something is holding you back. It's only in your mind. Change your mindset, get a coach, get someone to help you move forward. So, again, check out our website, thepowertoliveyourvision.com. Set up a free coaching session. We do this podcast, number one, to reinforce what we think and believe. It's really for ourselves, but it's also, we want to share our legacy of what we know that will help others. So,
Right.
Check it out. Any last words from you, Coach?
No, today was a very powerful show. I, again, just encourage everyone to stay tuned in, go back and check out some of our older shows that are also online. And hey, just everyone be inspired, and go after it. And we're here to support you.
Well, and that's true. One of my new things, that I say to myself, and that's where you want to be able to be. I wake up every day and I say, thank you, Lord, that I am me.
Yeah.
So I mean, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, that I wake up every day. I go, thank you, Lord, for blessing me to be me, because the doors that have been opened, the things I've been able to do, the lives I've been able to support, I'm truly grateful, for that. And, teaching people about legacy. By the way, our new book is coming out, and that is the Who's Who in the Martial Arts Legacy book. It's our first full color book. Go to Amazon, check it out, or go to our new website, which is the who's who in the martial arts. Check out the new book for martial artists or for anyone that shares the history of the martial arts. We're going to be in Vegas next week. So remember, we're going to get a lot of stuff for the next few weeks that's going to be happening. So stay tuned. Coach Nathan and I, we got a book coming out later on this year. So stay tuned for that. So remember, everyone has a story. You just have to get it out. And
Yes,
hey,
sir.
everyone, be blessed. And hey, remember, don't stop. Keep moving forward.